Morning. Can you hear me okay? Give me a thumbs up. You can. Clear your, clear your mat of debris and detritus, if there's any on it. Bring yourself up to standing, please. We're going to start in Tadasana. So arms by the sides, chest up, breathing through your nose. I quite like to move my feet because of the plantar fascia gets tight. If you move your feet, that might loosen that plantar fascia and loosen the tissue all the way up the legs. Shoulders are down, head is up. Breathing, as I said, is nasal. Chest is lifted, but not thrust forwards. So keep a little buoyancy at the pelvic floor. Notice if your body wants to lean one way or the other. Let it, let it explore its predilections. So if it wants to lean left or it wants to lean right, then let it, let it lean left, let it lean right, or let it drift to the left, or let it drift to the right, whatever the body wants to do. The breathing, expressive, becoming more expressive, and movements helping us to feel a sense of vahi, or flow, which as yogis we know just means that there's a sense of equality that grows when you're not caught up, when there's flow. That means that the mind is moving into upeksha, equanimity. And why that's so important is because that means that the mind is opening fully to the whole field, which is often called a whole field or one. Imagine you're holding heavy bags and they're pulling your arms down. Seasonally, I'll say they've got pumpkins in them. And for some reason, perhaps there's a sort of neurotic drive here, but for some reason, when you bought your pumpkins, you made sure you bought pumpkins of exactly the same weight. So they're pulling down on your arms, on the lateral margins of your collarbones. Incidentally, I'm still moving my feet. I'm sort of guiding tissue together into unified flows where there's less of this sort of sort of flooding out. In yoga, it's so often known as chitta vikshepas, the scattered mind. So the mind and the body are the same. So you bring the body and mind and breath together. As you feel the heavy bags with pumpkins in, then there's a counter drive up that I think is intuitive and natural. A counter drive up. So just to recap, we're letting the body drift left and right. We're moving our feet if we find that useful. We're imagining that we're pulling, or bags are pulling down, so on the lateral margins of the collarbones, and that we're counter drawing up the prana, apana energies. The apana energy being a downward moving energy, the prana energy being an upward moving energy. Now let your fingers wiggle if you want to. Stretch your arms out like you're going to hug a tree. So that should be elbows a little higher than shoulders. So there's a sort of elevated, inspired look. You look like you're inspired, or that you're having some sort of dramatized religious moment or something. And breathing easy. Now we're going to bring the right arm over the top of the left, and then release and repeat 3 or 4 times. So every time you do that, of course, you can feel out what's going on a little better, a little clearer. And at some point, you'll feel ready for a full wrap round. And then breathe into that. There's the option to bend, extend. Of course, that stretches the calcaneus tendons. And to move up or down or both, or to lean forwards or back or both, or to push the pelvis to the left or the right. Both. So how low you go is up to you, whether you push the bum backwards or whether you draw it under. And when you're ready, coming up and release. Sorry, I'm sure that was muffled in the microphone because I don't know what to do with my arms in the microphone in that pose. Anyway, it's just the way it goes. Stretch your arms out. Again, like you're having an inspired religious moment. I think I'm quite well lit for like the rays of God or something. Anyway, underarm over the top 2 or 3 or 4 times. God, I used to love those kind of movies with religious inspired moments. I was a kid particularly. I loved all those Jesus-y films. I loved those. I think I was probably just crushing on the actor who was always incredibly handsome. Anyway, wrapping the arms round and round and round. And breathing through the nose. And that sort of meditative opportunity so, of course, the word God has as many meanings as there are people that say it. And we sometimes use goddess instead. But in this, it's not a belief, it's a direct experience, you see. And why it's a sort of deified is because it transcends all our troubles. And what is it? It's not really in it, it's this. The interdependent nature of all of this dancing together as a whole, selfless. And it's that selflessness that transcends our problems. If there is no self, then problems don't know what to attach themselves to. They just kind of float around the universe looking for a self. And if they can't find one, they just kind of keep floating around. You need a self to be able to have problems. Bend ankles, knees, and hips. And coming down. And so this is why the field is so liberative. And it's here and now. And it's liberative because it's so clearly rich, interdependent, and changeable that it's impossible to construct a self out of it. Again, there's various movements. You can stick the bum out, you can straighten the legs or bend them, you can push your pelvis left or right, or any or none, or something else. As long as it's bringing you into contact with the field. People who don't like sort of spiritual religious language could talk about the obvious and clear connections between the body, brain, and breath. And then you can easily expand that to environment. Inhale, coming up. And big release. Arms by your sides, shake it off in your own way, whether it's sort of rapid, slow, or whatever, until you feel released and soft. Arms up again. If it's difficult to raise the arms up, and I know it can be at times for different people, you can do it with the arms down, holding the shoulders or even the hands on the hips. We're going to bend ankles, knees, and hips and play with it. You can do things like drawing one arm back and extending the other arm forwards. You can do things like bouncing, turning, lifting up, lifting down. Utkatta means to squat, so you can squat if you want. The thing we're interested in is flow, not the postures. We're not serving any kind of idealized version of a posture, but we're serving a sense of flow that exists in the body, brain, and breath. That is, therefore, the only thing that's capable of becoming unified with the field, the mother, the goddess, the God, whatever you want to call it, the interdependent, praticca samutpada, on and on. Inhale, come up when you're ready. Hands to the heart. Deep, natural, easeful breaths. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Now, it may be that you'll use a belt for this because we're going to, so you might get one now. We're going to bring one arm up the back and the other one's going to come around and meet it. It may be that you've got long arms and You don't need the belt. The main cut and thrust of this really is the pull down that it creates on the lower arm shoulder, which dynamically pulls down on several muscles, the scalenes, the trapezius, the levator scapula. And so you can feel this sort of pull down to the collarbones. And that's challenging the way we shoulder our responsibilities. So the more things you feel responsible for, the more those shoulders creep up. And so people who feel very, very responsible often get very tight shoulders, painful shoulders, even frozen shoulders. So it's important to notice what you're picking up. Rather wonderfully, in the Buddhist canon, the Buddha in the Metta Sutta says that one should have only light, one who wants to practice metta should have light duties, right? Which we all might think, oh, yeah, I'd like that, yes, please. But, that's up to us. We have to keep putting them down, and then we can respond to the moment. It doesn't mean we don't respond to the moment. But the more you pick up, the more tense you become, and the more you make a wall, as Roger Waters would have put it, that separates you from reality instead of merges you with it. So your responses become less appropriate. Anyway, all good arguments for releasing your shoulders. And second side. Second side, sorry about that. I don't know how loud that was at home, but probably loud. Second side, other arm up when you're ready. And then other arm comes up the back, similarly. And I think I've done the same one. Again, the descending fibers of the trapezius, for example, but other muscles like the scalenes are involved. You can just feel it, neck, front of the neck, side of the neck, back of the neck. So essentially, duties are what we hold in our nervous system. And it seems sometimes that the older you get, the more you feel you've got more duties. But they are just what we hold in our nervous system. And then they come through our nerves to our muscles, and they make our muscles tense and tight. And so when you challenge that by moving the muscles in a different way to the way the habitual tension is holding them, then there's an opportunity to release what the nerves are holding to practice what's called nadi shodhana, nerve cleansing, which we do through our breath. We feel the resistance, we open to the resistance, we feel the pose, which is the mixture of the resistance and the needs of the moment. And we breathe. Okay, slow, easy and natural, and then shake it off in your own way. Take the feet hip width apart. Now you might need to use blocks for this, which you would put in front of yourself, either like this. It can be cork blocks or like this. But if you're not sure, go for like this, because it's easier to lower blocks and to get rid of them than it is to hire them up and to get them. And so always start with more than you think you need, and you can always lower that down afterwards. Hip width apart is ascertained. I'm so sorry. So sorry at home. Ascertained by moving your pelvis hither and thither. Move your pelvis left and right. And then you can feel where your hip sticks out furthest. And that's where we draw a straight line from there down to the outer feet. I'll try not to drop the microphone anymore. That's dropping the mic, but not in a cool way. Raise the arms up, light tone of the tongue. Feel an integration beyond thinking. So you find the pelvic floor, you feel an integration beyond thinking. Light tone in the tongue, release through the roots of the neck. So the integration is sort of accumulative. And as we sort of integrate, as we come into the body, then we release the past. It's a bit like moving into a new flat or something. You know, the longer you're there, the more you forget the old flat. I was going to use a metaphor of partners, but I thought it was too cruel. Inhale, exhale, fold down to your bricks, which at first might be the full height, might stay like that because we want space in the spine, or you might immediately feel that the spine still keeps that anterior space with the blocks lower or lower. And you breathe through your nose. I personally find it useful to do things like raising my heels to stretch out and to wake up the back of my legs. Do make sure your toes are not turning out. And make sure also, to the extent that you can, that your little toes are free. So there are a whole variety of what's appropriate. What's yogic is absorption. So it doesn't make any difference, yogically speaking, whether your blocks are high, low, or middle. And of course, anatomical proportions will also partly dictate that. Some people come very low, and they, instead of putting their hands on the block, they might put their head on a block. I've got two there, one on top of the other, or one. Or any, you know, there's lots of different configurations you could have of blocks. But the important thing is that the breath is opening up. And that you're moving in ways that help the breath to open up. So this is Uttanasana, Uttanasana 1. And it's all about the breath. Now we can come lower. I'll just turn sideways for better information. We can go lower now by either having no blocks at all if the legs are comfortable with them straight. And let's not forget that this, for many of us, this is an early morning class. And so the hamstrings are often not so flexible. So you can bend your knees and should bend your knees if the back is not showing signs of giving. We don't want to have sustained dullness, aching, or pain in the back. And then the arms can hang whether or not your knees are bent. And you breathe through your nose if you can. Good. Now we're going to bend the knees more until we all feel our ribs touching our thighs. And then really let go. Let go of the head. Let go of the arms. Let go through the back. Continue to let your bum move down and your head move up, and bring your hands up onto your thighs. Straighten and lock your elbows. And then continue your ascent, letting the energy come down to your feet. I sometimes sort of jostle it. I imagine I'm playing that marvelous game, Kaplunk, where the marbles, we don't want them to fall down, but in this metaphor, you do. You want them to come down. It was a game I constantly craved as a kid, Kaplunk. And the very, very sad story is I never, ever got it. Anyway, take your feet into a wide stride. We'll move on from that. I'm sorry to bring you down. Didn't mean to upset anyone. Hands on the hips. Breathe through the nose. Just a quick note, if anyone is feeling sorry for me, it's too late. Don't get me one. I can afford them now, but I don't want it anymore. Stretch your arms. Turn your left toes in, right front leg out, turning on the ball of the foot, finishing off the turn on the heel. Heel to arch alignment. Inhale, exhale, come down. Breathe easy. And enjoy the pose. I just realized it's a lie. I think I do still want it. I might look on eBay. Anyway, enjoy the morning or whatever. If you're watching this later, if it's one that I put on YouTube, I never know what I put on YouTube. Whatever time you're doing it. And enjoy and breathe and give and surrender and get into the arms of the goddess, which, it begins with intimacy and play here and now and breath. Inhale. Come on up. Good job. Hands on the hips. Feet face forwards. Breathing through your nose. Back toes in when you're ready. Front foot and leg out on the ball of the foot. Finish off the turn on the heel. Heel to arch. Alignment and stretch the arms up. Wiggle if you wanna. Fingers or hips. Inhale, exhale. So as the pelvis moves, the hamstrings get pulled and stretched, which you can feel. Extraneous fascial tissue will melt. Adhesions between various fascial trains will also melt. And flow begins in terms of the hyaluronic acid in the fascia, in terms of the blood, because if the fascia is built up too much, sometimes it presses on blood vessels. And in terms of the nerves, when the nerves feel less pressure, the mind relaxes. And when the mind relaxes, it opens. It doesn't cling. We're coming down rather than up, so bring your top arm down. Lift the back heel, turn it out. Step your front foot back, and you're in Adho Mukha Svanasana. If the pose is tricky, by all means use a belt around your arms, tied near to the elbows. It can be very supportive. If you feel too much in the shoulders, that can help. Get your hands to get a deeper connection with the mat and the mind at the same time. Feel free to move if it's useful. Pelvis left, pelvis right, bending, extending the knees, that kind of thing. Heels back, groins up, back of the thighs forwards, front of the thighs up. Armpits stretched and long, especially starting with the inner armpit and following with the outer. Down to hands and knees when you're ready. Take it slow. And then wag your tail and loosen up. Feel your wrists just as they are. Open up to them. Become aware of them. And take the arm furthest away from me or from the shrine towards the shrine. Just as I'm taking mine away from the shrine towards you, you're taking yours towards me, depending on your setup. And then extending your other arm out. Breathing through your nose. Softening your jaw. A sense of study that comes under the category of swadhyaya that I translate sometimes as fascination. So fascination. So an area like your deltoid, caps your shoulder. And that fascination brings about knowledge. Swadhyaya leads to Ishvara Pranidhana.
which means surrender to Ishvara. And Ishvara comes from two particles, Ish plus Vara, which means best master, Ishvara. So when you become fascinated, that leads to this, to knowing. Surrender to the best master means there's a sense of knowing. But that happens only at the point of total intimacy. Just with this moment. Retract your arm and push onto hands and knees and take a deep breath. Wag your tail to loosen your back any way that works for you. And when you're ready, the other arm will go underneath and obviously the other direction. And similarly, you can extend out. And then again, fascination. Fascination, it seems to me, has as part of it the desire to unify, become as one. And I always think the sort of king of fascination in my mind is David Attenborough. Because when he looks at a little row of ants, he's clearly, he's fascinated. And of course, this has made him an enormously empathic and wise and marvelous 97-year-old. So if you can remember David Attenborough's voice when he's commenting on a row of ants or whatever it is, and evoke some of that fascination for your own deltoid that taps the shoulder. And that fascination will take you into Ishvara Pranidhana. This great, immediate, profound wisdom that knows, in other traditions call this Shaktis, powers, that knows and desires and acts. Good. Retract your extended arm. Come back to hands and knees. Take a breath or two or three. Walk your knees when you're ready forwards towards your wrists, and then turn your wrists the other way around, your hands the other way around. So your fingers point towards your knees. And then let's come back to Ishvara Pranidhana. Surrender or total surrender, throwing yourself in front of the best master. And so there'll be knowing and acting that happen together, and the desire to act, which all come out of fascination, come out of this fascination. Because when fascination is complete, then there's unification, like a surfer and a wave. The surfer is the wave. They can't predict what's going to happen. They can't guess what's going to happen on the wave. They can't decide what they're going to do before they do it. The only way someone can ride a wave is if they are the wave. Okay, tuck under your toes and peel your hands back up slowly, placing them the right way round and coming to high heel kneeling position, just where you are. Stretching the plantar fascia, which is a very important thing to do. Breathing naturalized, soft. Jaw soft. Spontaneous, natural, investigative. And coming out of that pose, turning to face the midline of the room and sitting in Dandasana, probably on blocks. If you're using blocks, the short ends of the blocks come in towards each other like that, and then you sit on that structure. But you don't have to, but it's useful for most people. You draw the body pressure out and back, bringing yourself to the inner front edge of the ischiotuberosities. So repetition, I think, is just wonderful. Repetition is like combing your hair. If you're someone whose mind gets easily scattered, which I know you are, what you need is repetition. What we need is repetition. It's so common, scattered mind, that the term chitta vikshepas exists in pretty much every tradition: Sankhya Yoga, Patanjali Yoga, Buddhism of various stages, including Mahayana Buddhism. Scattered mind. So bring your hands back next to your hips, drag them back. As you stretch your chest. And then use the body to gather the mind. This morning, Ollie mentioned his dad has got iron filings in his house and other dangerous things because he's got engineering projects going on. Sounds like a very interesting man. Iron filings is a good metaphor because without a magnet, they may well be scattered in various directions. But with a magnet, you can draw them all together. So similarly, our own scattered mind can be magnetized through movement. We're sort of mopping up, finding stray iron filings by moving left and right, and forwards and backwards, and generating increasing levels of integration, yoga. So as you move around, you can imagine picking up this fiber, picking up that fiber, or filing, iron filing. Chest is up, shoulders are back, feet are broad, breath is expressive. We're constantly searching or striving like a true shramana. Shramana means a striver. Broadening your feet, deepening subtly the hip joints. Always looking for integration and lift. Very, very honest practice. Well done. Ease out of that which I think might be my favorite pose. And then turn around, and probably sitting on a block or two because we're going to bring one leg up and over the other. In a version of Gomukhasana, so you'd start on a block or two or even three. You can have a blanket nearby to support your legs. Both legs will start over one side and you bring your top leg up and over the bottom. 1 foot back, 1 foot forwards, lifting and shifting until you get it just right for you. Breathing through your nose, shoulders down, jaw soft. Investigating through movement and affirming your investigations through the breath. So when movement is the right movement, it will encourage your breath to release, which is us letting go and letting go of duties. So our duties are light, which are light duties, which is a mental state. It doesn't mean you don't have things to do.
Buddhist monks in the Theravadan tradition have 227 precepts. So, you might think that's quite a lot, duties, things they mustn't do and must do. So moving around, breathing through your nose. Jaw soft. So staying in the pose isn't a license to sort of space out, but to tune in. It's a pose that I think is good to stay a long time. But, different people have different ideas what a long time is. So we'll come out slow and easy. When we're ready, guiding the legs out, extending them out in front of us, bringing a bit of movement and life to the body, maybe a little rub down. Well, yeah, a rub down. It started, so we'll carry on. Once you've started a rub down, you must follow it through, I think. It's a natural instinct. It's an energy bath, and it should be everywhere. It's very important when you do an energy bath that you don't miss any parts of the body at all. Okay, once you've got that whole body energy feeling, then your legs go over to the other side, similarly. And the top leg will come up and over the bottom leg, and a little lifting and shifting may happen. So it's Gomukasana. This is on the diagonal. There are other versions of Gomukasana. This is the one that's most universally applicable for most people's bodies. And then there's a sense of study in the present. So one is investigatively moving. So if you study something, you might sort of investigate it in some ways. What happens if this happens, and what happens if that happens? So you might investigate the pose, moving it left and right and so on, to see if you can find sensations that are interesting enough. You only have to be interesting enough. And remember, we want to be as a surfer who is necessarily at one with the wave she's on.
Remind the jaw to be soft, passive. Release slow and easy when you're ready. And take a breath or two. Again, we might need a strap for what we're going to come into. We're going to come into Paschimottanasana. And again, we might need to sit on a block as well. The criteria for sitting on a block is after having drawn the butterfly out and back. If you're not sure if the lower back is light and drawn in and up, then we sit on the block. We draw the butterfly out and back. We take the belt. I'm just going to mime a belt. So I think it's quite impressive miming. I think everyone agrees. Very impressive. And you pull on your belt, whether mimed or real, and drive the back of the body in. And it may be, after a while, if you move left and right, that the hamstrings start to get massaged. And as they start to get massaged, the sitting bones can release backwards, as it were, which allows the pelvis at the top to tilt forwards, which might bring you closer to your feet, so that some people may hold the feet, others of us use the belt. What matters isn't how close your hands are to your feet. Why would that matter? What matters is that whatever sensations you're feeling, you're breathing into, disappearing into. The surfer is becoming the wave, becomes the wave. The surfer is the wave. And from that point of view, the Shaktis arrive, the three powers. The power to know, the power of knowing, the power of desire, wanting, and the power of acting, which of course are all interdependent powers. So you go beyond the need for a teacher to tell you anything. The teacher is really ideally just a reminder of the attitude that we tune into. But the actual way we move is an expression, a karana. Of the unification of the dance and the dancer, of the wave and the surfer. That point of unification is also the point where grasping spontaneously releases. Grasping cannot be made to release, because all you end up with is grasping at not grasping, or thinking that you shouldn't think, or trying not to try. Grasping has to fall off us spontaneously. It does that in the light of richness. Good to imagine that the thighs drop. Coming back up, slow, calm, and easy. Taking a breath or two. And for the next pose, you might need a block or two. It's Ardha Matsyendrasana. I'll go through it briefly before you come into it, and then you'll know there, because there's a couple of different versions for the foot. In a minute, you're going to bend the leg that's furthest away from me, just as I'm bending the leg that's furthest away from you. And then you've got two choices. You turn the foot and sit on it, or you move the foot right out to the side and you sit instead on a block like that. So the foot can come right underneath. So if you're doing the underneath, if you know you're going to the underneath version, all you need to do is come from a straight leg and just feed it underneath straight away, like that. So it appears out here at the other side. Or, of course, as I mentioned, it is possible for some people to feel comfortable sitting on the foot, but a lot of people don't. And I should make it clear that if you're sitting on the foot, the heel goes underneath one buttock. The heel is not in the middle. Some people have told me that they've done that, and I'm like, no, that's not it. Okay, when you're ready, you bend back the other leg. So the instructions, whether you're sitting on the foot or sitting on a block, are the same now. And then that other leg comes up and over away from me, just as mine's coming away from you. And then you bring your leg into a sort of headlock, like you're headlocking a very, very small person, which you shouldn't do. It's not right to headlock anyone, let alone very small people. And then maybe it feels right and comfortable to hook the elbow, but no problem if not. So you'd be turning towards me. And this is Ardha Matsyendrasana. Ardha means half, of course. Matsyendra is the Indra of the fish, that is the lord of the fish, or the ruler of the fish, Matsyendra. Matsyendra Narda is, in many people's view, the sort of founder, energetically speaking, of Hatha Yoga. Okay. Release when you're ready. And return to center. I love that pose. It's gorgeous, isn't it? And then release, if you're ready. Stretch out, take a breath, loosen up, chill out, chillax. Keep breathing. I'm pretty sure young people still say that. I'm pretty with it. Fold the other leg back when you're ready, same thing. So, whether you're sitting on the block or not, remember, if you're sitting on the block, you don't need to bring the leg back in the way I showed you. You can just go underneath like that. But if you're sitting on the foot, then it will have to go back like that. And then bend the other leg, lift up tall, breathe through your nose if you can. Top leg up and over the bottom leg. The toes should be behind the knee, not in front of it. And the toes just face the same way as the shin. So you don't need to sort of twist your foot forwards or anything like that. Just let your foot be natural. And then lift and turn, give your leg a little headlock, as it were. I have to confess that I have put most of my children into this sort of headlock and done that thing with their hair. That's pretty much it. Well, definitely all of them. They've all had that treatment, and they'll have it again if I can. Lift and turn, although they're all rather bigger than me now. Lift and turn and breathe. Jaw soft. So the hooking is an option. You can keep the sort of headlock position if you prefer. The hand in Abhaya Mudra. Abhaya Mudra. Meaning, Abhaya means fear not or fearless. The origin story of Abhaya Mudra goes back into Buddhist storytelling of when a wild bull elephant was released by the Buddha's, was he his nephew or cousin, relative of his anyway, who didn't like the Buddha. And he kept trying to kill him. It's a bit like, like a comedy in a way. It's a bit like Inspector Clouseau and K2, the guy was always trying to attack each other. So the Buddha's cousin was like that a little bit. So he releases this bull elephant, and the Buddha just raises his hand up to the bull elephant who's rampaging, causing all sorts of problems, and just says, "Fear not." And the elephant calms down. Isn't that a lovely story? Okay, so release and turn back to center. Stretch out your legs. Lay down on your back, not corpse pose. I always have to say it's not corpse pose really quick because people get excited. Hands under the head, fingers interlaced. Take 3 or 4 deep, natural breaths. And again, so merging is knowledge. And merging requires the release of what we're holding, views and opinions. For example, if you meet someone and your mind is filled with views and opinions, then if those views and opinions, as they probably don't match up with the reality of the person in front of you, hopefully you'll be the kind of person who sort of just allows those views and opinions to melt away and the reality of the person to shine forth. Walk your feet very close to your bum and just lift your bum up. So your feet are on the floor, but bum is off the floor. And then you can shake or tilt or just loosen your lower back in any way that you find you can. So we want to lengthen and loosen. We're also using this to find the pelvic floor. And if you do find the pelvic floor, that's like finding reality. Because the reality of the pelvic floor, you could sort of label it. You might learn the muscle names, iliococcygeus, pubococcygeus, and so on. You might learn different muscle attachments. You might learn ligaments. You might learn tendons. You might learn various facts about the bones of the pelvis. But the pelvic floor's reality is not just muscle, not just bone, not just skin, but heat and energy. And it's related to our minds because it's related to our nervous system. So if you find the pelvic floor, the direct reality beyond all thoughts about it, then you'll find the mother, the field. It's a portal, as anything can be. Then the pelvis drifts down like an autumn leaf. And taking deep breaths. Jaw soft, eyes soft. Lower back soft. Release your hands from behind your head. Take 2 or 3 or 4 more deep breaths. Observe the lower back releasing itself. It is corpse pose. So if you want to be warmer, you can roll over to the side and get something warmer. Or if you're here in the Buddhist center directly, of course, I'm going to get up and walk around and bring blankets for anyone who wants them. Make sure when you lay down, your arms are generously placed, very generously placed. That is to say, away from the mat. And I've heard people say, and it's arguable that it is, people say this is the most important pose. Some people say it's the most difficult pose. And I think people are just understandably, deliberately over-egging the pudding. Because often we just think this is nothing. But remember, this is one of only 5 techniques taught in one of the most important texts on Hatha Yoga ever, the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra. So once you lay down, make sure you've got the symmetry you need, that your head doesn't tip back. And I'll just give us the instructions from the Dattatreya Yoga Shastra, the yoga teachings of Dattatreya. Find a place that you can be on your own. I'll add free of duties. Duties and responsibilities to do with being somebody's friend, to do with being somebody's partner, to do with being somebody's employee or employer, or to do with being a member of a social group, a family group, a religious group, a business group, to do with being a citizen, or someone who passionately believes X, Y, or Z. When the mind is free of duties and responsibilities, it becomes vast and open. It melts back into its source. Laying on our backs with our limbs loose and our mouth facing the sky as if we were dead. I don't know a lot about what it is to be dead, but I know that the dead don't have any duties and responsibilities. When the mind is truly open, it includes everything. And this is what we call metta in Pali, or Maitri in Sanskritam. The friendly include all. Feel into the body as if it was something really new and fascinating, interdependent. You can move your toes, for example, or fingers. And gradually, that fascination increases. And with fascination comes Ishvara Pranidhana. We might start stretching in various ways as the fascination increases. The Ishvara Pranidhana, meaning surrender to the Lord, means surrender to this sort of powerful, spontaneous intuition. Bending the legs, placing the feet on the floor, scooting the buttocks under, taking an extra deep breath in and out to let the lower back release entirely into the breath.
ready, roll onto your side, facing away from the shrine side of the room, and lay as comfortably as you can. When you're ready, roll again. Let light and color in, take some stretches. Bringing yourself up from the side. Nice and easy. Hands to the heart. May any benefit that we've gained in our acting in this way be shared to alleviate the suffering of absolutely every being. Om. Thanks, Rumas. Thanks, Sumas. Those are love. Thanks so much for coming. Delight to see your beautiful face. See you soon, I hope. Ciao for now.